myself of cannabis, I'm able to rove and scan through a vast intellectual world that is composed of all the books I've ever read, all the people I've ever known, all the places I've ever been, in no particular order. And what I really value about cannabis is the way in which it allows one to be taken by surprise by unexpected ideas. In the absence of cannabis, my creativity is a kind of brick by brick, linear extrapolation of certain concerns based on what I've just read or heard in conversation. If, on the other hand, I smoke cannabis, I can go in one moment from thinking about Goethe's color theory to, in the next moment, puzzling over a particular instance in Mayan historiography, or, the examples are endless. And I think that my experience is generalizable, specifically by looking at, for instance, the architectural and art historical motifs of areas of the world where cannabis has been institutionalized for thousands of years. What we call Oriental extravagance is in fact the patina of design motifs and literary conventions that have been laid over ordinary experience in places like Bengal, the Punjab, and across the Middle East. Islam is a civilization, to my mind, largely, though perhaps unconsciously, under the influence of the visions and the attitudes imparted by hashish.
I got my own way to rock. I got my own way to roll. And that spells it the best. Fine stereo.
Alan.
Ladies and gentlemen.
You having a nightmare? What if it's true?
Ladies and gentlemen.
Alan, it's a possibility, isn't it?
The very word secrecy is repugnant.
Secrets.
In a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers,
constant, extreme danger,
which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger,
extreme danger,
that an announced need for increased security.
This is Conspiracy Queries Green Crush with Alan Park.
Will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control.
You're crazy.
And no officious, high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes.
Isn't the Pentagon suspicious that all the buildings blow up?
Or to withhold from the press and the public
I think you're just looking at things for the first time.
the facts they deserve to know.
You've had your whole f***ing life to think things over. What good's a few minutes more gonna do you now?
The facts they deserve to know. They deserve to know. Deserve to know. Deserve to know. Facts they deserve to know.
Okay. Hey. Thanks for tuning in. You like the way I did that? Stitched it together. Welcome to the show. This is Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. Confession time. This will be the least prepared for show that I've ever done. Probably ever. And there are all kinds of reasons for that. But I have spent some time with our guest today online and looking at the things that she will be giving us. Information that's going to blow your mind. But that's all we ever try to do on the show, right, is get information that blows your mind. Hopefully you've been feeding your mind with truth and nutrition. And when I say nutrition, I'm also meaning cannabis plant. And if you don't have any and you're waiting for the Ontario government to sell it to us, well, you're either a stickler for rules that don't mean anything, or maybe you haven't heard of it. Maybe you've got too many prescription pills. But in any case, welcome to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park, episode 35 and episode 107. 8 and 8. These are the conspiracy queries, and I am the Alan Park, so let's get started. 35, 107, both in that order and together. The two swirling, connected strands of DNA. The fiber of my being. Before I was taken ill, I used to do a show called Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park, because I was the host. That's how I came up with the name. And, good gosh, that's loud. It doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be right there. There we go. And it was going well. It was a fun time, and I learned a lot of things about the lies and the chicanery and the evil and the darkness that exists out there in the world. Just about everywhere you look, there are systems of control, systems of oppression, systems of pieces of paper, and signatures on them. And you know you always have to give your consent for those pieces of paper to take effect. That's the little secret they rarely share. And you can get ensnared by these little pieces of paper. And sometimes it's extremely difficult. And at this time, I'm so thrilled. We are still without sponsor. Still without any kind of corporate assistance, although I understand there are some people waiting for things to become legalized. But that gives me the green light in the meantime to talk about whatever I want to talk about without having to stick to a corporate script series of pieces of paper. But as I was saying, I used to do this show, Conspiracy Queries, where I learned of these rapacious bastards and their methodologies of rights infringement. And just when you think cannabis is going to be legalized, there are further restrictions to taking it on. And so I needed to start talking about this fantastic plant food medicine life giver, soul rejuvenator, illegal substance. Because it really did help me turn myself into a better person. Did it do that? Well, yeah, in some areas it did. Did it give me energy? Yeah, it gave me energy. But what I really liked about it was that it prevented my funeral. If you're new to the show, I'm a stage 4 cancer victim. I now am a 5 years ago. This is unbelievable to me. 5 years ago, I was so sick. The year of 2013, lucky 13. And it got worse and worse. And the white coats couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out. I'm sure Shoppers Drug Mart was happy about that as I went through hundreds of dollars of over-the-counter pain relievers that caused me subsequent problems and helped me carry toxic loads and feel like shit. All for short bursts of pain relief that's nothing like the good, sweet, relaxing feel of taking in some green. And when I realized that I had cancer, and it was, stage 4, there's no way out of that, right? That's what we're told. No way to end this. You're just going to fizzle on out. Your bones are going to metastasize. And you're just going to internally dissolve. And I'm so sorry for all of the people that has happened to. So many people. When I was a little kid, watching television on a black and white set in a big cabinet on the floor, I remember the commercials. Cancer, the cure is just around the corner. With your money, we can... Well, that's a round room, folks. There's no corner in that fucking thing. Series of lies. In fact, the cancer has gotten worse. It's proliferated since we were told these fictions, by the way, paid for with your tax dollars, what they used to still call a public service announcement. It's a public service to tell you a bunch of shit about how the cure's coming, but there's nothing you can do about it if you get it. That's a nice way to control the paradigm, right? We got the cure, it's coming, we're working on it, but there's nothing you could do about it. And we're working on the cure, and we've taken your tax money, and we've made these little spots telling you how it's all going to be something we're going to fix. And we'll fix it soon, but soon is relative because it's been 50 years now since I started hearing about it. Half a century, 1/3 of the life of this country as it is, Canada. All that time went by. Got worse and worse. Now half of the things you eat from these corporations are going to help trigger that. Illness, breakdown, body decay. No one's really eating food anymore. They're eating packages of stuff that can sit on the shelf for 6 weeks or so at the grocery store. And a lot of the restaurants you eat in are going to be serving the same thing. And there's been a degradation in the quality of the food and the amino acids and all of the components that are necessary for your health. And then they take those foods, as whittled down as they are, and they process them and they add chemicals to them. And you're not in the best shape you could be, are you? Meanwhile, one of the best nutritional substances on the planet is illegal. You shouldn't have it. It's not good for you. The science shows it's dangerous. The science shows it's a gateway drug. The science shows we don't have enough science and we need to spend more time on it. So how do they make these proclamations of its negativity, while at the same time telling us it's bad for us? So there's an agenda going on, and that's why these two shows have merged. The Green Crush, green being the cannabis, crush being what it does if you use it properly and you learn how it works, instead of pretending that it's just this dangerous thing. And that's what I did. And that's why the local funeral home is 30 grand short, or whatever it costs to plant a body under the ground anymore, on my account. And thank goodness my cancer was so far advanced that my doctor said, there's nothing you can do. And I started to fade away even more quickly at that point. I started taking the cannabis almost immediately after diagnosis, just a few days, 4 days after. 3 days later, I was feeling a lot better. From the tiniest amount you could imagine. I guess it would work out to the equivalent of 3 uncooked rice grains over 75 to 80 hours. And that's kind of a strange place to be in when you know you're going to die for sure. And then you discover that 3 little rice grains of this oil that's illegal, that I did not apply any kind of official governmental papers towards allowing myself to obtain. I understand at that time I wouldn't have been able to get it anyway. They would have allowed me some small amount of dried flour, not enough to make the oil, which has reversed so much and so many of my physical problems due to cancer. Now my only tether to the bloody big C is that every month I have to go to the doctor to test my blood to see if it's okay still, to see if I'm doing all right. People ask me, so is it gone? Did you get rid of it? Is cancer gone? I don't know. It doesn't affect me the way it affected me. I'm not dead in the ground the way I was guaranteed to be. I got pretty upset back then because I was being coerced at that time of illness, that darkness. Coerced is going to be the word I'm going to use to write a will, to will away my earthly goods because at that time, the person nearest to me was concerned, that she would have no recourse were I to die, and she would have been in a bit of a mess there, financially speaking, I suppose. And while it's true that you do need to fill out a will at some point in your life, I couldn't get myself to that place. I could not take it on as a job, even though I was ailing, because I could feel internally I was on the way up, and I didn't want to use the act of signing a will as a concession to the darkness that it is foretelling, that it is the introduction sheet for this will that's required. It was a mental thing, and I thought, if I really need a will, I've got time to slide a little further down this awful slope, and I'll get a will later. Get out of my fucking face. And that was a fight you don't want to have with your partner. And there were a couple of bumps of positivity along the way, but like Burton Cummings said at the beginning with the music, the little ethereal radio station that starts this show, baby said she loved me, but then she went and left me, causing such an awful scene. That's almost complimentary in the destruction of what's been going on in my life lately. I wish it was just an awful scene. And so this week, I haven't done my homework, kiddos. I have not been able to manage the full-time deal of how much time I like to spend on this particular malady, this particular illness, and the way I have been able to counter it. I'm going to see if I can get myself close to a place where I no longer have to deal with those cloying hooks, those terrible little tugs at any kind of progress. Is it right brain or left brain when you're more a walking Excel spreadsheet than you are anything creative? And then we got married. I have to take the responsibility for being fooled into a situation soon after my operation, of being given a timeline to pop the question, otherwise the relationship would end. From where I sit now, that sounds ridiculous. But at the time, I was just out of the hospital, the worst possible time I could have had, pulled myself slowly together, recuperating from an operation. And even at that stage, I had 3 months to ask the question. And I wanted a life, and I wanted a wife, and everything felt like it was great. And as soon as I did pop that question, things were going very well indeed. Planning things. Getting the meal together for the outdoor wedding. It's like a cartoon now, as I realize I was manipulated into this thing at every level. Because if that's the case, after having been with someone for such a long time, why would the relationship crash to a halt just a few months later? And then the legal impetus to divest myself of half of everything. That's the law, though. That's the piece of paper. It's a good thing I was there for her, though. Helped her get some work. Helped her out with a paycheck the size of which she had never seen before and has not seen since. So it's time to get your hooks into a stage 4 cancer guy's ability to keep himself rolling. Can you just skip past all those, please? No, I can't. These are the kinds of things that I brought to light a long time ago. This is the story of my life. This is the story of my life, and a major part of it is how I was able to extend it. And like I said, I didn't want to fill out any kind of will at that time. I feel like I want to do that while I'm healthy, not while I'm desperately afraid of losing my life. So the battle continues, and it's going to continue. 10 years down the hole, 5 of it on the cancer bed. Not a lot of fun in that way. But the best part about it is the adversity that it brought has helped myself and a few others create this show that presents people with the facts of how to take this plant and use it, and how to let the government know that you're not afraid, that you know, that they know that you're using it. I have never asked permission to take a plant that grows in the ground and squeeze it down and create the oily drip that has reversed my death promise. It just never made any sense to me that I might have to fill out a series of papers and wait several months to get a yes or a no. Probably a yes, but months down the road, I did not have months. And I realized this is nonsense. Just do it. And I did it. I should have filled out the paperwork anyway, just to see how long it might have taken. But I never really am on board with the filling out the paperwork to allow yourself to get permission from a den of vipers to tell you all about how you're going to be able to get a certain amount at a certain time from a certain supplier and just consume it in your home and nowhere else. That's not the society I choose to live in, so I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Once you get to the edge of the world, your own world, and you're going to check out, you look back in the rearview mirror and go, what the hell was that? Why did I believe that had any kind of power over me? Why would I think that? When I was at the edge of my life, these thoughts were easy, just pouring into my head. Now, I get it. If I were stage 1 or 2 or precancerous, you might want to do all the chemo, radiation, and anything else you can get your hands on. But when you have no other option, you take the one that comes into your mind. But soon after I began my wondrous walk down the planted path of plant health over cancer death, stage 4, I learned it's impossible to fully understand and discuss cannabis without discussing conspiracy. They're intertwined, just like these two shows. And so, from adversity comes triumph, eh? That's what they say. And that certainly sums up our guest today. If you have ever been on YouTube, type in Jane Dro, D-R-O. Take a look at what she has to offer on YouTube. What a very entertaining woman. What a spirit. What a spirit of light and positivity coming from Jane Dro. She has multiple sclerosis, and she uses cannabis to give herself and take the power and create her own positive life. Someone with light in her, as opposed to some other folks a little closer around my circle who are the stark opposite of that. From the positivity that Jane brings to the show, you are going to find out that you don't always take a bad deal lying down. She's transformed herself into a substantial YouTube presenter. Jane Dro, check out her channel. I mean, wait till the show's over because she's coming on in a few minutes. But before we get to Jane, let's take a look at some fake news, as they call it, because this is not in the New York Times. This is not in the Newsweek magazine, or one of the multitudes of publications that are owned by just a handful of companies directing the narrative. This is from U.S. Health Times. Probably just a crock, right? It says here, Harvard University finds cannabis cuts tumor growth in half in 3 weeks. Well, that's pretty incredible, because just a few rice grains cut my pain and helped me walk again in just a few days. So I believe that that it cuts tumor growth in half in 3 weeks. The active ingredient in marijuana, and there are lots of them, cuts tumor growth in common lung cancer in half and significantly reduces the ability of the cancer to spread. Says Harvard. Harvard, folks. You know, all that shines from Harvard is believed to be 100% true all the time. So whenever we get something from Harvard or Yale, what are you going to say about that, naysayers? What are you going to say about that, Bill Blair? They say this is the first set of experiments to show that the compound delta tetrahydrocannabinol, THC, inhibits EGF-induced growth and migration in epidermal growth factor repeater, that's an EGFR, expressing non-small cell lung cancer cell lines. Lung cancers that have overexpress EGFR are usually highly aggressive and resistant to chemotherapy. So just in 2 paragraphs, we have that certain tumors are resistant to chemotherapy and that cannabis can cut the growth of it. Or you can listen to Justin Trudeau. Your choice. THC that targets cannabinoid receptors CB1 and CB2 is similar in function to endocannabinoids, which are the cannabinoids that are naturally produced in the body and activate these receptors. The researchers suggest that THC or other designer agents that activate these receptors might be used in a targeted fashion to treat lung cancer. So it's a pretty limited scope here. And that's great. They're just pointing to lung cancer. I myself, a prostate cancer survivor, champion, victor. There's brain cancer folks out there with the same, not the same, it's a different journey, but a measure of success against it using this illegal, dangerous gateway drug substance. Are we done with the lies? Like, part of me wants to continue with this show so badly that if I can get the shit cleared out of my life, I could sit here 3 to 5 days a week and just give it all to you as hard as I could and as fast as I could. But it's only once a week that I'm able to do it at this time for a multitude of reasons. But I'd like to just sit down here and tell you all about it. On the other hand, I would rather it just be fait accompli and get about the business of some other things I'd like to do. But I need to help some people realize that these possibilities are right in their face and right in their window box or wherever they choose to grow it. Don't buy your cannabis from the Ontario government, folks. Don't buy it from Health Canada. Oops, now the licensed producers are mad at me. They can grow it and they can put football fields together and stick them inside a greenhouse. I get all that. but you can also grow your own. 4 plants. You're allowed 4 plants. You're allowed 6 plants. No plants for you. You can't smoke in your apartment. You have to smoke it in your home. Oh, God. The beauty of this study is that we are showing that a substance of abuse, if used prudently, may offer a new road to therapy against lung cancer. So that is the most lukewarm endorsement which you would expect from Harvard. They're couching it. The beauty of this study is that we're showing a substance of abuse, if used prudently, which is what you're supposed to do. I'm not advocating reckless usage of it. May offer a new road to therapy. Does offer. It does offer that. It doesn't may offer it. It does offer it. How well you do depends on a lot of other factors, nutritional and otherwise, and also the quality of the cannabis that you're getting. So there have been a lot of licensed producers in Canada. For example, this company called Organigram that was caught with illegal substances, banned pesticides. Oh, it's not harmful to the... It's not harmful. Well, what the hell are you doing with it in a company called Organigram? You would think that they are implying that the stuff is organic. But what are you doing with that fertilizer in there? Anyway, they're talking to them now again like they're real players, even though they were punished for this. A lot of LPs have had these chemicals in their chuff. Stay away. Grow your own. It's illegal, though. Okay. Acting through cannabinoid receptors CB1 and CB2, endocannabinoids as well as THC are thought to play a role in a variety of biological functions. They are playing a role in a variety of functions. Couch it, soften it, don't make it too pointed. Like, if they could just tell the truth about this, they'd be jumping up and down. But I like the fact that they're so reticent to share this news, and you can read that in the language they're using. Although a medical derivative of THC known as Marinol has been approved for use as an appetite stimulant for cancer patients, and a small number of U.S. states allow the use of medical marijuana to treat the same side effect, few studies have shown that THC might have anti-tumor activity. And that's what they'll tell you. They say, well, we don't have any information on this, so we're going to make it illegal. Well, why are you making it illegal? Well, we know that it's dangerous. Well, where'd you get the information? Well, we don't have enough information. We need more studies. Well, it's helping my medical condition. Well, you can't really prove that. Well, then let's test it. Well, you can't test it. It's illegal. This is the swirling mandala of the insane, by the way. Most of the folks that allow themselves or feel enticed to be lured into positions of power are fucking nuts. Psychopaths. You're also couched in a perception that you're a great guy when you've achieved some kind of high office a lot of times. Obviously, that's not the case right now for Trump, where so many people hate him, but there are mayors of towns and councilors and congressmen and senators, and they're all perceived to be, very decent folks. And I'm sure some of them are. Forbes magazine for the high rollers, the money folks survey says nearly half of people who use cannabidiol products, that's the CBDs, stop taking traditional medicines. The largest survey on cannabidiol or CBD usage to date found that women were more likely than men to use CBD, and once they started, were likely to drop their traditional medicine. And I've had a conversation with a fellow a few days ago who is a man and not a woman, and he said that he's also done the same thing. He doesn't need this bevy of prescriptions he had before. You think that might be part of the reason why this is illegal or difficult to obtain? Or taking a mother like Vera Toomey and giving her a hard time and telling her she's going to have to take her kid to a different country to give her medicine. Or Jenny Hallam in Australia, same thing, previous guests on the show. These people are suffering a bizarre onslaught of difficulty and potential punishment from the government, because the government is lobbied by people with money, and people with money are all over the pharmaceutical industry. And the pharmaceutical industry has been fighting this for such a long time that now they've figured out to try to get into the back door to synthesize their own version of cannabis, which is licensed, measured, blah, 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 taxed, the whole thing. it's really kind of depressing sometimes. So while I fight to keep doing this show and I want to bring the message forward, I am conflicted. This should all just be fait accompli, bare bones stuff like you know your alphabet, and we could all just get on to other things. It would be like if, starting your day with a decent breakfast was shat upon as a horrible idea, and nobody wanted to do it, and then all of a sudden people wanted to have breakfast to start their day, to put food in their body and get going, and the government's telling you how bad it is and don't do that. And do you have permission? Did you fill out a form for that muffin? We don't need to talk about that stuff. Cannabidiol is a non-psychoactive cannabis compound, still illegal in many places, however. And this is the fucking reason for it. It doesn't give users the feeling they're high or stoned. Instead, it's known to have medicinal qualities. I'm glad that they're saying here it's known to have. This is in Forbes. Instead of it's thought to believe to be thinking that it might have or may have. The Brightfield Group, which helped conduct the survey, studies consumption patterns and demands trends and is committed to providing accurate data in the cannabis industry, which seems to be rife with unsupported claims. They don't even say it is filled with... It seems to be. Can we just get to some straight talk with these people? I'd like to do that. Here's a fantastic article, and then we're going to bring on our guest. She will be with us in a few minutes. Let me just make sure I have that number. All right, here we go. Going to give her a call in a second. Here's an article in the what's called globalnews.ca. This is a little news gathering outfit here in Canada that attempts accuracy from time to time. It says, stick with your dealer or buy pot legally. How legalization will affect the black market. Right. So let's find out what they say here about that. When it comes to buying pot in Canada, it's safe to say that it's readily available to the public. As experts explain, Canada's black market is sophisticated and mature. So how will legalization affect it? The price of legal marijuana and the supply of it and the taxes of it and the consumer experience are all major factors that will determine whether or not the government can successfully compete with the black market. Prediction ain't gonna happen. The technology exists to help yourself to create $1 or $2, $3 gram. The government's never going to be able to keep up with the black market, and, I don't really think they want to. We can talk more about that later. But this is not going to be an okay time for them. It says that experts predict that at first, just like Colorado, which legalized recreational pot in 2014, there won't be enough supply to meet the demand. That's probably true. And that's why this province of Ontario, with I don't know how many millions of people, is going to have to service its cannabis needs legally by going to 40 stores. Sure, there'll be more later. There might even be 100 stores across this giant province later. Are we as big as Texas? Does anybody know that? Pretty large anyway. 40 stores. 40 stores. Imagine you're going to be driving in your car out of your town to go to some other place to obey the law, take in some cannabis, and you'll have it in your system, and if they do a spot check, ride check, random pullover, which they will be doing, you're going to test positive for cannabis, even if you're not high. And there are going to be a series of legal problems that are going to be massive. I'd like to tell them how to avoid that, but they seem hell-bent on just causing these kinds of problems. Don't take this healthy plant. Once again, a synthetic marijuana approved by the DEA for medicine, while the real thing remains illegal. Can you believe that? Well, let's see what Jenny Dro's got to say about this. She is on the line, and we are reaching her in her home state of... Where's Jenny? Are you there?
Hello.
Hello, Jenny. How's it going today?
This is Jane. Hello.
Oh, sorry, Jane. I was just talking about Jenny. I'm sorry. I think if your computer is up, I'm getting a bit of an echo here. Can you turn your sound box down?
Yeah. I was tuning in, and I just put you on mute. So hopefully that'll clear up shortly.
Oh, so many people want to do that. Good for you. Put me on mute. So how are you today?
I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I'm doing pretty good. Thank you so much for having me on. How are you doing today?
I'm going through a slog right now, to be honest with you, but this isn't about me now. I've already got me out of the way. We want to talk about you. Now, unfortunately, you have multiple sclerosis. Is that right?
I do. I've had it for most of my life, actually.
Oh, how old a little girl were you when you found out?
Well, I was in my 20s when I got diagnosed, but they were able to track back my first documented exacerbation in my late teens.
Oh my goodness.
So, it was strange getting diagnosed with it only because, I had felt this way for so long. I thought that everybody felt that way.
Oh my
goodness. So when I finally got diagnosed,
Right.
and found out it wasn't normal for me to be feeling this way, it was it took me a moment to digest.
Right.
to
Oh,
say
I'm
the
sure it
least.
did. What kinds of symptoms or what kinds of experiences did you now know are negative, but at the time you just thought they were normal? What kind of things that you would sort of eventually lead you to the doctor's office for a diagnosis?
Well, I was experiencing a lot of fatigue, abnormal fatigue. With MS fatigue, it's different. It's not like just being tired. It's actually like a narcoleptic fatigue where you're just functioning just fine, and then all of a sudden you just pass out. I mean, you literally fall over where you're at in a narcoleptic way. And so that was strange. And then I had a lot of strange nerve sensations.
Right.
And I was incredibly klutzy. And one of the biggest things is I remember getting diagnosed, and the neurologist had me go through all these kind of drunk driving tests, like road tests, when you get pulled over and they test you to see if you've been driving or drinking, rather.
Right.
And I failed every single one of those tests. And I nervously laughed and I said, but who can do all that, And he did each and every one of those tests. And it was very strange. I just figured I was a real klutzy person and everybody had weird sensations in their bodies.
Wow. So you're dropping things
Yeah.
and spilling things and that kind of deal.
Falling a lot.
Right. And do you have any siblings?
I do. I'm the youngest of 5 children. And actually, my father was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was in my teens. And so in my early teens, actually. So I was very familiar with this disease by the time I got diagnosed with it.
Oh. Are we just one second. Are we still good for volume? Let me know, Kim, if you're having some volume problems apparently with the podcast, which we have to deal with because it's live. I don't know why that is. All my levels are where they're usually at, so I don't know. Okay, so that's did you ever spend time with your these? What I'm trying to say is when you thought you felt normal and that everybody felt that way, did you get into conversations with your sibling and say, and start to realize the difference?
At that point, yeah, I did. And, I was already married by the time I got diagnosed, and it was right after the birth of my first child. Which is often when women especially get diagnosed because any kind of, physical trauma to your body will generally trigger an MS exacerbation. And that's exactly what the birth of my daughter did. It triggered this major flare-up, which got me diagnosed.
Wow.
So after that, it was, I mostly went over things with, I think, my husband and some other family members, sure, but I realized very quickly that everyone else did not feel the same way I felt.
Oh my goodness! So when you were diagnosed, and that must have been like getting a hammer over the head, learning that in the first place.
Yeah, it was. It was right after the birth of my first child too. So, she was just a couple months old. And, so I thought I had this big, bright future of, finally giving birth. I was on fertility clinics too for over a year to have her. So we really worked hard to have children. And then, I had a baby and got this diagnosis just a few weeks later. It rocked our world for sure.
Yeah, so now you're just coming out of motherhood. Now, what might have happened had you been a pregnant woman and already starting to take any kind of medication that they were having? You know, that couldn't have been a good idea to have a fetus inside you and then taking some kind of MS medication.
No, I was advised not to have any more children. And it wasn't really due to the medication. It was due to the damage that it does on your body. You know, you're really, once you get diagnosed with MS, you know, you're told that anything that you, any kind of physical or emotional stress will progress the disease. It's not even a question. It certainly will. So, you know, they do not advise having children once you get diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I chose, my husband and I chose to have another child. It was never our intention just to have one. So we had two children, and after the birth of my son, my second child, I was actually, my disease did progress quite a bit, like they predicted, and I was in a wheelchair for 6 years, an electric wheelchair, after the birth of my son.
Which years of your life were you in an electric wheelchair? How old to which age?
Well, the last time I used a wheelchair was August 4th, 2012, and I guess I went in when I was about 30. Just to turn 30 years old. Yeah. So it just, I was across the street one day having dinner with my neighbors, and in the middle of dinner, my legs went numb from the waist down, and I really didn't have use of them and couldn't bear weight. And there I sat and they put me on chemotherapy actually to slow the progression.
What,
and
really?
was,
I've never heard of that. Is that chemotherapy for MS?
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah, I went through chemotherapy for 3 years to slow the progression. And I was on 27 different pharmaceuticals. And finally, my doctor recommended cannabis as a last resort. And I got off all those pharmaceuticals.
Okay, so what you just said was you took a boatload of pharmaceuticals for an extended period of time, and none of that really worked and probably only caused problems and toxic loads from the carrying agents inside and maybe some other side effects. And then when all of that didn't help you out, now it's time to take this green stuff that you're still enjoying. Don't you wish you'd done it the other way around?
Well, yeah. What's funny is I was a child of the 80s, and I really believed weed could kill me. And so I never did drugs in high school, unfortunately. And so I had never even tried cannabis recreationally. So this was the very first time I tried it. I was 29 years old and married and scared, and really thought it could kill me even then.
You thought cannabis could kill you?
Oh, absolutely. Up until a few years ago. I thought, I didn't know that weed was safe.
Wow. That is something. What a turnaround you've been on so many levels. My goodness. That's incredible.
Oh, yeah. A complete 180.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And, it was instant. The relief that I felt when I started smoking the cannabis. I was petrified, but within minutes, I had feeling again in my legs. And I started to cry just because it was so incredible. It was like a miracle. And I haven't been without cannabis a day since. And I got off all those medications. And I got out of the wheelchair. And I just finished a half marathon in October.
A half marathon?
Yes, sir.
And do you mind if I ask how old you are right now?
I'm 42 years young.
You're 42 years young. You spent a lot of your 30s, the bulk of your 30s, in a wheelchair, and now you're doing a half marathon. That's incredible.
That's right. I'm living it up in my 40s.
I'm not going to press this, but I have to ask because you're already an amazing woman. It's been fun watching your stuff online, but I have to say, if you are now doing a half marathon, don't act like I'm putting this on you, but do you have any plans to do an entire marathon? Because it wouldn't surprise me.
I'm going for it this year.
You're going to do that this year?
No, that's exactly what I'm going for this year. So I'm chasing my dream of completing, a full marathon. And it's taken me a really long time. Like I said, since, August 2012, I have been on this journey putting, one foot in front of the other, literally, to try and complete this marathon. And I will get there. I did, like I said, the half in October, and this year I'm training for the full, and I actually have corporate sponsors behind me. So I'm really excited about that.
Well, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited that I know, a long time ago I used to do this show. It felt like I was just shouting down the center spindle of a paper towel roll, and there was no one at the other end. But I've started to get some feedback from a lot of people, and I understand that these information blasts that we're able to do once a week are helping a lot of folks. So I want to make sure that if anybody is out there listening to, how terrible their life is going due to some kind of physical or emotional or whatever kind of thing it is that can be remedied with cannabis, listen to this woman. She's in a friggin' wheelchair. She can't have kids. What a mess. Next thing you know, she's running a half marathon and then a marathon. You're doing exactly the opposite of the downward trajectory that you were given. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it's Thank you.
You're welcome. It's astounding to observe.
Well, I have to. I feel. I feel a little bit bad. I feel like we're misrepresenting just slightly, only because, it wasn't just the MS that gave me this kind of drive. When I was 35, I fell really ill, and I spent a year in the hospital. I fell really, really ill with diverticulitis, and I actually had a colostomy bag, and I had a horrible prognosis. I mean, they didn't think I was going to make it. And, I was listening to the beginning of the podcast, and when I think something happens when you face the end of your life, and I took stock of my life and I really decided to shake it up and change things, and that's really when I turned things around.
We're having hang on a second. Hold on, Jane. We are having a bit of a problem here. You're cutting in and out. Let's just take, you know what? Just let me see here. Hang in a second. It's just kind of fluttering and stuttering. Are you there still? Is that better?
Yeah, sure. Take your time.
No, you're still kind of strange. We may have to let you go and call you back right away. I don't know. Let's see how it goes. Okay, try again.
I was just saying that I think.
Okay, Jane, I'm going to hang up and call you back. Yeah. Are you okay? I'm going to hang up and call you right back. Okay. Unfortunately, we have to let Jane go at this time. I hate doing that. But in the meantime, let me just say that 420 is going to be happening real soon, April 20th. And if you're anywhere near Detroit or Windsor, Ontario, check out Windsor's two-day, an event that lasts 2 days long. Our guest next week, a returnee guest, Paul Hartman, will be there speaking on the Saturday. So check out that 420. And I'm going to call Jane back now. So that was kind of like a commercial, but not really. I had to cover some time there. All right. Hopefully Jane will be nice and crystal clear this time.
Hello.
That sounds better. Okay. So that's that sounds better. All right. So now tell me something. When you started to get over this...
I was just about... I'm sorry?
Yeah, go ahead. Finish up there, yeah.
I was just about to share that I think that when, you get that kind of diagnosis and you're at, you're facing what could be the end of your life.
Yeah.
I think you take, stock and reprioritize things and come back living life a little bit differently, almost like a do-over. And that's what I feel like I've got is just a do-over, and this is how I'm doing it over.
Yeah. The way I looked at it was that when I was guaranteed by all these experts the same thing, I likened it to my life was a movie, and for some reason, the movie was coming to an end at that time, bit of a surprise. The movie ended, the credits started to roll, the lights came up in the theater, and I stayed in my seat, and then they started playing a different movie, and no one came to get my ticket. So I'm on borrowed time.
Yeah.
That's how I feel. So yeah, it's a bit of a bonus.
It's like you get to live again. You get a do-over. It's nice.
It is nice. Yeah, a lot of reprioritization, right? And you see things a lot more clearly, don't you?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. If you're lucky. I don't know that everybody does when they get a second chance, but I certainly did. And I'm so grateful for the second chance.
How old are your
to do
children
things a
now?
little bit differently.
How old are your little kids?
They're 14 and 16.
14 and 16, and so they've known this whole story the whole time, I guess?
Yeah, they've only known me this way.
Right. And so when they were, you're 42 now, so they knew you in a wheelchair.
They did most of their life.
Yeah.
Most of their life, yeah.
And so they knew Mummy had a disease, and she's in a wheelchair, and a lot of the other mummies weren't. Their friends' mummies maybe weren't like that also. And then they've seen you get out of that wheelchair, so that must have been a fun day.
Well, yeah, but they have not had a fun life. I mean, it's because what got me out of that wheelchair was cannabis, and this is not, it is not a safe society for medicating mothers.
Right.
So my kids were very much shortchanged on life because this was not accepted. New Mexico, the state that I was living in, went legal in 2007. I've been medicating since 2005. But it wasn't socially acceptable. And, Children and Family Services were at my house 3 separate times because of cannabis, once called by my mother. I mean, so there's a whole other downside. There's a big cost that comes with medicating with marijuana. And that's why I started my YouTube channel, actually, and do the activism that I do online, to try and normalize this for women and families and mothers, because women are still losing their children every single day because they are simply medicating with marijuana.
Right. That is amazingly that is so on its face backwards. It's just like you're supposed to be deteriorating as you go along with these medications, and then they do as a last resort the cannabis that should have been the first resort. See, I was lucky that way. They didn't offer me any of those kind of remedies, so I started on
and
the
then
cannabis.
Still try and criminalize you and take your children for using that medicine and being a good mom and being able to take my children to the park and do things like that rather than being in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And this was, like I said, it was my own mother called once. So this is, my family didn't accept it. This was not an easy road.
Does your mother have any medical conditions whatsoever?
Sure. But, she's 70 years old, and she, is only recently coming around with the cannabis.
Right. So
but
she was kind of,
even up until a few years ago, was very much ashamed by the fact that I use marijuana for medicine.
So she was one of those, I'm going to guess, she was one of those older folks where you go into their home and for whatever reason, whether it's your auntie or your grandfather, and you go to use the bathroom and take a peek in the medicine cabinet, and it's just stocked. It looks like a mini pharmacy, right? Was she one of those kind of gals?
Oh, you got it. You got it. And a fully stocked liquor cabinet as well.
Yeah. Oh, it's so backwards. Well, so listen.
It really is.
You got into YouTube. Now, what was the journey from you're just getting better and feeling good to transitioning into a YouTube performer and news bringer, information and light bringer? How did that happen? You just decided to get on one day, or?
Yeah. I got on social media, and in what I think it was 2012, I got on social media for the first time. I opened a Twitter account, and there were there were a couple of guys that were taking bong rips and uploading the video to YouTube and then sharing it on Twitter back and forth. And they started this thing called Team Seshvid. And I joined.
I'm sorry, what's that called?
Sorry,
I missed that. What's the name of it?
It was called Team Seshvid. And it was just this little, Twitter group of, people, middle-aged people on Twitter that would take bong rips, and say hey to each other.
Right.
And they evolved into these little smoke sesh videos that we would share. And then after about 9 months, that kind of, fizzled. And I was, I had left my husband of, 15, 16 years and needed to do something with my life. and I had some background in search engine optimization. So I was reading an article about search engine optimization saying that Google was going to start listing YouTube videos as top search results within 24 to 48 hours of publication. And prior to this, if you wrote a blog post, it would take about 8 weeks for Google to list your blog post as a search result.
Right.
So I thought, wow. So I started making cannabis videos about cannabis products that were in the industry just coming out and seeing how it would do, and my channel did really, really well. And Jane Dro was born.
Wow, that's amazing. So now I understand you have 6 million views on your videos in total.
I do. I'm close to 6 million views total. I'm coming up on my 5-year anniversary since my first upload. That'll be 420 was my first upload to Team Seshvid.
Is that right? In 2013, that's when you did it, April 420, 2013?
Yeah, that was my very first upload.
Wow, that's
amazing. For the little group that we were sharing, yeah.
And
yeah.
do you do all the editing?
It's just been... I do. It's just me. I'm a one-woman show.
Oh, amazing.
And it's been really fun to be part of this evolution and part of this community and watch it evolve, and it's been great.
I'm so happy for you. That's great. So do you get a lot of people asking you advice, etc.?
Actually, for a while, I ran this series on my channel called Dear Jane. And people would send me letters, and I'd read them in kind of a Dear Abby fashion and answer, how to talk to your parents about smoking weed and things like that.
Right. That's fun.
Because, I would get so many emails and letters like that. So it spawned the Dear Jane series, actually. So, yeah.
Well, we're just going to play a
little chunk. And I do baking with Jane.
You bake with stuff? Are you?
Yeah, Baking with Jane is a series.
Are you familiar with watermelon? Not the fruit, but the person from Vancouver.
No, I'm not.
You should look up Watermelon. She's a guest on the show back a while ago. I've known her for a long time, but she is a baker extraordinaire. She ran for political office in Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, for council under the Sensible Party. Didn't get in, but she's a great person, and I'm sure you could swap some fantastic recipes.
Absolutely.
Look her up, Watermelon, and just put in Watermelon Cannabis. I'm sure it'll come up on YouTube. So I've got a little clip here from yourself from the other night, Saturday Night Live, March 31st, 2018. So I'm just going to play a little bit of you talking about, I guess you got a bong in your hand. Here we go.
Happy Saturday night, everybody. Happy Saturday night. Signing into the chat. I hope everybody's had a really good week. I have had a long week.
That's a green bong you've got there.
Where am I? Where is the live stream?
Yes.
Hi.
That's the take-along bong.
Here we go. Okay.
Okay, maybe I should have queued it up a little something else, but you've got a chat going on, and how many people get on that chat with you there?
Wow, I don't really know. Sometimes there's up to 70 people in that room on a Saturday night.
Oh, that's fantastic.
At any given time, yeah.
And you do it every Saturday?
I do every Saturday night live.
Wow, that's amazing.
Every Saturday night go live.
And that's the only time that's the only time you broadcast your show?
Well, sometimes I do like an impromptu live. I'll go live on YouTube, but for dependability reasons, just Saturday night. But yeah, I go live whenever I feel like it, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And then I try and upload, just the regular videos otherwise. But every Saturday night I do the live stream, and it's a lot of fun. And lately I've been getting sponsored by companies to do these big giveaways on the live stream, and that's been a ton of fun. We do like weed trivia and things like that, and so I'm working on getting some more of those sponsored for giveaways, and so they've been interactive and tons of fun.
Okay, so what's your you've got a bong there in that video, a green one. We should put our logo of the show on there. What kinds of other ways do you take it? I mean, aside from eating, like how do you actually, what's your personal methodology for infusing your foods, your whatever you're using? How do you do that? Do you just cook up the cannabis in an oil, or how does it go?
I do. Generally, I will either cook with keef, or I will use coconut oil. I really like using coconut oil. Recently, I did a video on how to infuse coconut oil, but more importantly, I think in that video I share how to filter your can of butter or your can of oil so that it doesn't taste weedy, and so that's a little nug of goodness there that'll make your edibles taste a lot better.
Well, I'm curious already. I'm curious. How do you do that? How do you take the weed taste out of weed?
It's a water filtration is what you do. You basically make your can of butter or can of oil, and when it's all hot and liquidy still, put it into a glass dish and put some water in there and stick it in the fridge. And what will happen is the oil will solidify and float to the top, or butter, yeah. And then underneath the water just filters out all that crap. I mean, it just clarifies.
Oh, so
I usually go through do that like 2 or 3 times, and you will be blown away at the difference in your can of butter or oil. And it's still just as weedy, I mean, it's not water soluble. So you're just using the water to filter it.
Wow. And then you use that to make all kinds of things.
Oh, yes. In fact, I actually had some extensive oral surgery last week. And in preparing for it on Monday night, I went live just impromptu like that. And I did a live baking with Jane because I was baking a bunch of edibles. And recently I made some medicated Muddy Buddies that just came out so good. Some blueberry lemon Muddy Buddies. And, when you filter your oil, it just takes the weed taste right out of it. And it's just, you get the most delicious tasting edibles.
So it's as simple as creating your own cannabis-infused oil and then just going ahead with any other regular recipe. And instead of adding butter or et cetera, you just add this can of butter. Is that it? I'm not a very good cook,
exactly.
By the way, as you can tell. That's what you have to do.
Exactly.
Oh, that's amazing.
That's it.
And the fats are good for you. And why do you choose coconut butter?
Well, I'll tell you, it is because I use cannabis in every way. So I don't just eat it. I don't just smoke it. I dab it, and I also smear it all over my body. So one of the reasons I use coconut oil is because it's healthier for me than the butter is. And but also what I do is I make it in the Magical Butter machine. I'm sponsored my channel by Magical Butter. I have a coupon code, Jane Drow. It'll get you a nice chunk off your Magical Butter machine. Sorry, I had to plug it.
That's okay. No, that's fine.
With the Magical Butter machine, what I do is I use the coconut oil, and then with my material, I run it through again with another batch of coconut oil, and I then add essential oils to that, and I use that to put on my body after my bath and my showers and things. I use that as my moisturizer. So if I
I really got to get on this.
I really.
So what happens when you start rubbing this cannabis oil all over your skin and your body? Does your whole body just start to numb out, or how? What's the sensation of that? There must be something.
No, you don't really get a sensation from it, but. If you are in pain, you can use this most certainly as a topical, and it will relieve it almost instantly. Cannabis salves have been used for a long time for topical reasons. And then just the coconut oil is great for your skin. Huh. But I really believe that what we're going to discover with all as we slowly get the science out there and the studies done is that we're going to find that cannabis is good for us as a preventative, antioxidant type of thing. Mm-hmm. And so I really try and incorporate the plant in every aspect of my life that I can. Yeah. Because I really believe it is that supportive to our life and to our system. And we have a whole endocannabinoid system that is just built to take every single cannabinoid that the cannabis plant has to offer. Yeah. Our bodies are literally built for this plant. So I'm into using it in every way I possibly can.
Yeah, I think I'm heading for that. I really want to take it in on a personal level. I'd like to record this, but I want to start. It's just the resources now, and I kind of don't really have the place to do this. But I want to eat it as a salad additive. I want to make like hummus from the seeds by soaking them like they were chickpeas. I want to use the oil. I want to vaporize. I want to use suppositories. I just want to do all of that. I think it's amazing. I mean, I'm doing some of those things, especially the suppositories. But I just think it's incredible how healthful it is. And at that level, how healthful it is and how deeply and heavily criticized and banned and illegalized it has been. And you have to get to the conclusion that there are some people that just don't want us to have it. Has it changed your thought patterns at all? Like when you, obviously you're thrilled that you're no longer confined to a wheelchair, obviously. But I mean, in the way that you've come up with, it's going to reorder some things in your brain, isn't it? Have you noticed effects on that level?
Well, yeah, absolutely. In lots of positive ways. Really, I can't think of any negative ways that it has affected my outlook or, my life.
Right.
In fact, one of the conversations I'd like to start having on my channel is how effective THC is. In this conversation of legalization, we talk so much about the CBDs and the other cannabinoids, but, it almost deflecting away from THC like it's a bad thing, the peace of mind and happiness that it provides. But, if it weren't for the THC, I wouldn't be here today.
I'm so happy to hear you say that.
Other cannabinoids.
Yeah.
The plant helps me most of the time from not suffering from this disease. I am always in pain. But it's the THC of the plant that has helped me cope with mentally dealing with the limitations, restrictions, all the bullshit. See that? Can I even say that on your show?
Oh, fuck
that comes along with this disease.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, and I don't want that to get lost in the conversation, because if we don't talk about these things, if we don't keep it will get taken away from us. They will take away THC or give us a drop of it, and they'll produce this, in a synthetic form, and that's what will be available to us.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in talking about that, and also for fighting for your right to grow, because I believe if we fight for the right to grow, we'll have the right to access.
Yeah.
But we just have to be careful that we don't let the government take this away from us.
Oh, you're so right about that. But listen, I'm so happy to hear you say this because when I've learned about the angles that I've picked up on along the way is that this substance is forever been, for decades first it started with it's the demon weed, it's the devil weed, it's the marijuana from Mexico, and it's evil and dangerous, and it's all propaganda. And that's how terrible it was at the time. That's what it was. But over the years, people have been experiencing positive results from it. And then I noticed that they eventually started to say, okay, it can help you alleviate nausea, and it does offer some brief pain. Well, that's really all it does, and it's still a dangerous substance, and you still can't have it. But and they're sort of incrementally admitting things, and so now this bullshit factor has fallen back to that position of THC, where everyone now that's mainstream that I know is getting on the CBD bandwagon. And I hate it, because what I think is going on there is like, okay, I'll use the cannabis. I guess there's research. I'll take it. I'll try. But can I get it without the THC? Because I don't want to. And they don't realize that the whole plant is the thing. It's not just about extracting the CBDs. I mean, extract the CBDs and supplement with CBDs. Take it all the time. But I hate the notion that it's either an illegal thing or a dirty, bad thing or an immoral thing to partake of the THC. So these are the same folks that said it wasn't working at all. Now they're still demonizing one component in the plant, the THC, and it's just like the same old agenda. But obviously we've kicked the door down far enough in the last 80 years that it's all going our way. Mm-hmm. So that's great.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I really would like to get it through everybody's thick skull that it's okay to be happy. It's okay to feel good. and I live in America where we all pursuit of happiness. Are you kidding me? Every time you try to pursue happiness here, you're stuck down.
Yeah.
Don't do that. It's immoral to pursue happiness.
Did you get a permit for that enjoyment? That's an enjoyment.
Right, exactly.
You have to pay
how much did you suffer for your drop of enjoyment?
Yeah.
So yeah. The joy is regulated. And that's got to stop.
I'm not sure about every single jurisdiction, but I recall when I used to be living in Vancouver, I remember I became aware of what's called an entertainment tax. So you had to pay extra money. If you're going to a comedy show or a movie or something like that, or some kind of live performance, it would be, say, a $20 ticket, $10 ticket, whatever. And then there'd be a surcharge of literally called an entertainment tax.
Are you kidding me?
No, not at all. And
I thought it was a joke.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm. That's what's so sad about it. There was an actual component called an entertainment. You're having fun. Oh, okay. Give us a couple extra bucks then. That's how ridiculous.
How did these things even pass? Who thinks this is a good idea? And most people thought it was a good idea to make it a thing. I mean, that's what's kind of creepy.
Well, now you're tipping into the second conspiracy part of the show. But basically, it's complacency on the part of the electorate and lobbying on the part of the people who benefit and profit from doing it that way.
Well, it's all about the money.
Yeah.
It's all about the money.
It's not?
I mean, we're completely threatening the pharmaceutical industry.
Oh,
which
for
is
sure.
huge.
Yeah, absolutely we are.
Yeah,
absolutely. But I notice now that, first the pharmaceuticals were like, no. And now they're saying, okay, but it's slow. Their introduction to take it up is slow because the pharmaceutical industry, I guess, realized at some point, look, this is definitely going to happen. We've been fighting it forever, but people are, they're going to get us. So we need to own it, and we need to control it so that, that they won't lose the money. And this is why I preach self-determination, self-preservation. This is why I want people to listen to my show, your show. There's a lot of other great programs out there and information right in your face to be able to take the power, never mind the right to take it. The rights are always granted. I'm talking about the power and the ownership and the self-determination to go, look, I'm physically screwed up. I don't have the wherewithal to go to medical school and get all this thing solved over the next 7 years because I've got a dire medical condition. I'm going to grow plants. I'm going to learn about them, and I'm going to benefit from them. I mean, that's the end of it, really. Just get your own stuff and make sure you are taking all of this in. Look how well you're doing. I mean, I'm not supposed to be here right now.
It's not that simple.
No, it's not that simple.
Unfortunately, Alan. But here's my only thing with it is, that's great for the people that can grow and that are able to grow their medicine.
Sure.
But there's a whole group of people that are just too sick to do it.
Right.
And what kind of medicine are they going to have access to? This is our medicine.
A dispensary,
this is our
maybe.
Thing.
You could get it.
Exactly. But the quality of the medicine that we get, that's in our hands now. And we have to keep it in our hands. We can't, because they're going to take it away from us. They've done it in Washington State. They took away medical here. They reversed it once it became recreational. So now medical has to pay recreational. Yeah,
I did not know this.
So no, I mean, but look, it happened up there in Canada. You guys were used to be able to grow your cannabis, and then they took it away from you or tried to. You can't get so complacent. You can't get so stoned with your bong and just not care and get relaxed about the rights as they are granted, because they will get taken away very, very quickly by the pharmaceutical industry, who doesn't want you to have them.
No, absolutely. You're absolutely right about that. Yeah. No, I'm not saying everybody can do it, but that's my directive. I just say, like, I'm not going to a doctor to rely on him to tell me a bunch of prescriptions are going to help turn me around. When I've heard your story, when I know my story, and I've heard so many more where people say, I tried this, then we did that, then there was surgery, then I did a bunch of drugs, blah, blah, blah. And then when that didn't work, as a last resort. Now, what does that mean, as a last resort? Why would it be a last resort? That should be the first thing you do. You should get on that right away.
First resort.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm going to take this moment right here to recap in my own words just for a second, if you let me do it. This is what I recommend. Yeah. This is a bulletin of recommendation right here. I'd like to drop this in front of, just to remind everybody, what all of this is. For me, let's call it a brief reminder. Okay, so what this is, folks, if you get stricken with a medical condition and you just found out about it from your doctor, there's always going to be a gap in time between learning about it and being treated or medicated for it. A few days, maybe next week, maybe they're going to bring you in a month or something. That right then is the moment that you need to avail yourself of this powerful substance and get on it right away. And in my case, for sure, you want to get on that oil immediately as a first resort with the THC. Don't take anything out of it. The whole plant, as best as you can do that, get it into an oil and take it in all of its forms before you even go back to the second doctor visit when they're reassessing and retesting and getting ready to start your treatment and your medication. Because when they do the retesting at that point and you've been taking this powerful stuff and using it, they're going to find numbers that are better and more in your favor than they were when you were diagnosed a few days ago or a week ago or 3 months ago. Get on this right away is what I would say if it were me. So thanks for letting me get to that, because that's a real nugget that comes up from time to time. And then you don't want to do it as a last resort. Do it as a first resort. Get some positive results from it, and then you'll feel it. You'll know that it is the thing that's doing the work.
It literally can't hurt.
It literally can't hurt, even though you were afraid of it when you started it. I mean, that's how so many people are. But I'm so glad you were able to turn it around. That's so fantastic.
Me too.
Yeah. Do you travel around much around your country, the United States of America?
I try to, but honestly, the medication was a problem. It still kind of is. It's still limiting. But now that we've progressed a little bit, I am able to fly within my country with my medication. At least I can fly out of my home state. I can't fly back in with medication, but I can fly out with medication.
Oh my God. That is ridiculous. You can fly out with it, but you can't fly in with it. And you have all the paperwork that says you're a medical user.
Correct. Well, it's mostly because each state has different laws. Yeah. So when I'm flying out of my state, I'm a resident here, so I'm a legal medical patient.
Sure.
So there's really nothing they can do to me in the airport here. But once I get to another airport, if it's not legal there or I'm not a card holder in that state, they can arrest me, and that's why I can't fly back in.
And I suppose that goes for international travel as well. I mean, I've not tried this, but if you because I don't have an official prescription, but have you ever flown to a different country with any kind of your medicine on you and experienced trouble entering that country?
No, I personally have not, nor would I attempt an international flight. However, my dear friend actually had a run-in with your fine Popo up there when she and her girlfriend accidentally crossed the border and had weed on them.
Accident? Okay, well, if they accidentally crossed the border, how did that work? They had weed on them. That's
I guess they just got lost, and then all of a sudden they were in this line and they got caught. And they couldn't get out, and they got stopped, and the dogs came and they found the weed, and they were held, and they let them go and stuff. They kept the weed, and they kept, her little pipe and her little stash jar that I gave her. She was really heartbroken about that.
Yeah.
But she was very relieved that they let her go and just sent her back. And they also had a weapon in the car, so it was fun times.
See, that's the kind of logic that comes from these straight-thinking, non-cannabis minds. All of this nonsense back and forth. Just even the logical conundrum of, okay, so they came into the country, technically speaking, they made a mistake or whatever, but they came in with this illegal substance, and they didn't have to go to jail and spend a bunch of time in jail. They just booted them out and told them to get out of here. But they kept the stuff. And keeping the marijuana, keeping the cannabis, keeping the weed at the border because they're confiscating it because they don't want it to come into the country. Yet if they turned the person away who had it with it, it would also be out of the country. But they just take it. They take it all the time.
Right.
I have a friend who lives in Mexico, and she's been telling me about busts that have been happening where the cops just come in, they grab everything and leave. That's all they do. They don't arrest anybody. They just avail themselves of the goodies in the shop, and that's it. Then the folks have to restock. Basic thievery
Well,
101.
That's been happening a long time down here, though. I mean, even patient raids. Their grows, they just come in and they take their stuff and they break their plants and they leave. And oftentimes the person is not even arrested.
Well, I'm not advocating arrest.
They destroy and they go.
I don't like to advocate arrest, but in that particular,
no, but it's still crappy. They should just leave altogether.
No, they shouldn't be there at all. But I think
the plants and take the stuff.
Yeah, and I think if they are going in there to do that technically speaking, they should arrest them. That's what they're supposed to be doing, right? That's what they're needing to prevent this proliferation of this terrible substance, and we should be locking up the people that are doing it. So if they're not going to arrest the people, they really shouldn't be coming into the shop to take the stuff. And if they're going to come and take the stuff, they should be arresting the people. Once again, I'm not advocating their arrest. It just there's no logic to it. It doesn't make sense. It just reveals
No, there's no logic.
Yeah. I'd like to know where all that stuff goes.
And there's no way you can obey to rules that don't have any logic to them.
No.
Yeah. So it's a system that's set up to catch you and keep you down.
Yeah. Well, that's what we're experiencing up here in Canada. We're getting rid of the 7 cannabis laws and replacing them with 45 new ones, and it'll be legalized then. I mean, that's what it really works out to. So you can't do international travel. That's too bad. You should go to Portugal. You could fly to Portugal.
Right. See? No, I think I'll see that within my lifetime.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't fly internationally with cannabis yet.
Right.
Not at least on, I'd fly with it in my system, but not on my body. And I remember that Colorado, when they legalized a few years ago, they had, before this was all worked out, they had like these amnesty boxes in their airport where you could just, drop any cannabis that you had if you were, I don't know how many people would, still do that. I wouldn't be one of those people.
Just drop it in the box. Everything will be okay. We'll send someone around to collect that later, and they're going to have a real good time this weekend for free. Jeez.
Yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to, because when police take, I'm convinced anyway, when they confiscate your weed, they take it home and get high.
There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about that. I'm sure there's a couple of stickler cops here and there with pickles up their butt, and they think they're doing society a great favor by disposing of it the best way they can. But I've had weed taken off of me when I was in high school. Technically speaking, too young to take it in. We were sitting in a park, and a cop came up and just asked us what was in the bag, and we showed him, and he took it and said, "Don't come here again." That was the end of that. I mean, they just do it.
He should have said thank you.
Yeah. Don't drive while high, officer. Yeah, it's a really top-down, upside-down, crazy old world. That's for sure. Are you getting any kind of other appearances on other shows besides? I mean, you have your own show, but we had to get you on. Have you been on any other cannabis-themed shows in the past little bit?
I actually way back in the day, you might know this guy, Matt Myrna. Do you know who he is?
Matt Lerner?
Matt Myrna.
Oh, sure, yeah, Canadian guy, yeah, absolutely, yeah,
Canadian guy.
Yeah, Matt, I've met him.
Yeah, I was on the marijuana zone a couple of times way back in the day when I lived in New Mexico, talking about snow bongs.
Snow bongs. Tell us about that. What's that?
Well, if I'm just a dumb American, so I think that Canada is just like one big snowflake. So I have the impression that you have snow all the time. And what you can do if and when you have snow is you can put some of that snow in your bong where the ice catcher is, and it is the smoothest hit you will ever take out of a bong. Is if you pack that bong with snow.
And you can pull the vapor or the smoke through it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. They're just itty bitty, shaved ice crystals.
Oh, that's a fantastic
and
idea.
It cools the hit and just filters it with all those little snowflakes.
Well, I'm
just the same thing like we were talking earlier about filtering the can oil. It's the same kind of filtration process.
Right.
With, colder water molecules.
Wow, that's great. I'm going to have to now I'm excited for winter. We just got past winter, but I can't wait for next time to try that.
If you think a bong hit with ice in the chamber is nice, just imagine, snowflakes, because all those little, it's just millions and millions of little ice cubes almost.
Right.
It's super, super sweet.
Oh, that's a great idea. I like it. I like all of the things that you're doing, and I'd like to get you back on the show sometime. And I'm so happy. I want to just recap, if you haven't heard the beginning of the show, just go back and listen to it. But Jane is a person with MS, and she has found herself so incapacitated as to spend 6 years in her 30s in a wheelchair, later had kids. Now she ran a half marathon, and she's working on a full marathon while she's productive enough to put her own YouTube channel out there that's getting 6 million hits with a substance that she swears is helping her out when nothing else would. That's the whole show in 30 seconds right there. I'm so glad.
Wow, you're amazing.
I'm so glad that you were came on. I mean, that's the stark point of it. I mean, that's what we need everybody to understand. You just take it all in and you enjoy it, and that's all. It's a perfectly decent substance. The thing that concerns me though is let me talk to you about this. Without giving any names, you have to make sure that you obtain your cannabis from a reliable source that doesn't have pesticides and other gunk in it. How do you do that? How do you achieve that you're getting good stuff?
Well, I thank you for bringing that up, because I am a huge believer in not using chemicals to grow your medicine. And, it has not always been easy because, chemically grown weed is cheaper and easier to come by a lot of the times. Just like McDonald's or fast food, it's going to be
Right.
It's going to be cheaper, and it's not going to be as good for you. But I'm very, very fortunate that now that I'm in California, that we grow some of the finest weed on earth here, in the Emerald Triangle, and the sun-grown cannabis, the organic sun-grown cannabis that comes out of my state is just unbelievable. And so there's a lot of access to that, and even though it's not tested here, there's enough of the culture growing that way out here that it's easy enough to come by, and again, I'm a believer in growing your own. I just started to grow it. As a matter of fact, I just brought in 7 babies 48 hours ago. I'm a new mommy.
You've got
Brought in
7 plants?
clones. Yes.
Well, that's not allowed.
7 plants.
You're only supposed to have 4 up here.
Well, here I'm allowed to have a lot more than 7.
No,
in fact,
I know.
I'm going to be bringing in a lot more than 7.
I'm sure you are. And so do you get different strain? I mean, what kinds of different strains are you dealing with?
Well, the ones that I just brought in are Purple Punch, Orange Cookie, Lemon OG, and Lava Cake.
Lava Cake. Oh, that sounds good.
Lava Cake. And then in a couple of weeks, once those babies are born, in a couple of weeks, I'll be bringing in some gelato and some do-si-do.
Wow. I've not heard of any of
they're
these.
all into naming the strains after the Girl Scout cookies. All the different varieties out here now. So
that's so good. And do you experience different sensations from blend to blend? I mean, obviously there's a different taste to these different strains, but do you experience alternate, what would I call it, sensations?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And those depend on the not just the THC level, but the cannabinoid makeup and also the terpenoid makeup. We're discovering so much about terpenes now. That's really, really interesting. Are you familiar with the whole terpenes and what they're learning about that?
Not enough to turn down your opportunity to explain it to us.
Well, okay, so, I think the easiest way to explain it is, everybody knows about aromatherapy and about like lavender. I think is one of the most common ones. And how calming lavender is. It helps you sleep and it helps with anxiety. If you smell it, you can feel calm right away. So if you eat the lavender is actually linalool is what you're smelling when you're using lavender essential oil. It's actually linalool, and if you can eat it, so you can take a very small amount of this terpene linalool and it will calm you. And in many of the cannabis strains that have a calming effect, it is high in linalool. So by adding the individual terpenes or a mix of the terpenes yourself, you can really manipulate or build your own strain, if you will. You can break it down and build it up. And so they've been able to break down all these really common strains of like sour diesel and OG Kush, and you get the complete terpene profile, and they're actually able to bottle the strain.
Wow.
So talk about, getting really, really far away from like the natural organic nug of the plant. But these food terpenes are added to all of our stuff. And you can buy these terpenes online, and you can add them in when you get high. It's like eating a mango. You've heard
Right.
if you eat a mango when you're high, you get higher. Well, it's true.
Yeah.
What they're talking about is the myrcene, and that's the terpene that's in mango.
Myrcene. That's
Myrcene.
MYRCINE. Is that what that is?
No, sir. It's MYRCENE.
Oh, CENE. I'm sorry.
Myrcene.
Okay.
And so what myrcene does is it allows for more of the cannabis and cannabinoids to pass through the blood-brain barrier. So that's why it gets you higher if you eat a mango after you get high. Now, if you just eat a mango without any, THC in your system, it's not going to do anything. It's going to be a delicious mango. But if you eat it when you're high, you're going to get higher. And if you smell, linalool or lavender essential oil when you're high, you're going to get calmer.
Right. Wow. Okay, tell us about chocolate. One of my favorite things. It also triggers the same receptors. You must have done all kinds of chocolate mixing with this stuff, right?
Well, actually, the reason why chocolate does that, I'm a nerd and a half, if you haven't figured it out already. The reason why chocolate does that is because of the soy lecithin that is in the chocolate.
Really?
So when you're making, soy lecithin, and if you don't want to use soy, you can use sunflower lecithin. What lecithin does is it acts like a lube. A lube between the blood-brain barrier is the easiest way I can describe it. So it makes all your little molecules and your cannabinoids slide a lot more can slide through. So when you add soy lecithin to your oil or butter, you will get it will be about 30% more effective.
God, I did not know that. Thanks for telling me that. Let me drop a bomb on you. So when I was doing my cannabis, I eventually started to take intravenous vitamin C. This was a way to, vitamin C is good for you. The end. I don't care what people say. It's good for you. It's a very healthful property. And I was taking it in my arm in a needle. It was very expensive to do this back and forth to the naturopath, and you'd load in like 50 milligrams. Can't even remember now. 50, 75. I did 125 sometimes. Kind of an arduous process. Then I found out about liposomal vitamin C, and I started taking that. Well, not to get too bogged down with the details, if you look it up, lipo is in fat, liposomal vitamin C, and it's you're making it with this soy lecithin. This is how you do it, and this is the fat that's used. So the soy lecithin is carrying the vitamin C from a concentrated apple juice as well as ascorbic acid. I know the jury's out on the complete health aspect of ascorbic acid versus vitamin C, but I was banging that stuff like crazy. And you just drink it, and it's far more easy to deal with than sticking it in your arm. And that makes sense now because I was doing them in concert together, the green stuff and the orange stuff together. That's the soy lecithin helping that out as well. Amazing. I got to get back on that too. Have you ever made that?
If you look, no, I haven't. But if you look at the ingredient on chocolate, most chocolate contains soy lecithin.
Soy lecithin,
and I just wanted to add that little. Yeah, so that's why add wheat to chocolate. It makes it a little bit more intense because of the soy lecithin.
Oh, okay. I was hoping it was to do with the actual cacao itself or something of that nature.
No, sadly, no. It's one of those additives that they put in there. Yeah. But you can get it off Amazon. You can get yourself a big tub of soy lecithin for like $14 off Amazon. Lasts you a lifetime.
Wow, that's amazing. Listen, we've got a couple
powdered kinds, by the way.
Oh, the powdered kind, yeah, exactly. It's sort of a granulated type, isn't it? Yeah, it's a strange.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we do have a couple of questions. At least one question from our audience, and then I'm going to go to some breaking news. So it's not really breaking because I'm going to take the audience question first. But Stiletto Supermom. So I'd kind of like to meet her right on that. Just her name is Stiletto Supermom. So. She wears stilettos. Yeah. She's a supermom. Sounds like you in a way. She says, would you ever come to Canada? Consider that we are a foreign country, given your status. But would you ever come up here?
I would love to. It's actually on my bucket list to see Canada. So I am just waiting for the opportunity, actually. I would love to. Can't wait for the opportunity.
We've got a lot of great places here across a very big chunk of land. But I'm sure anybody listening to this show or anybody in the cannabis community or folks that are aware of your health triumphs would be thrilled to have you up here sometime. There is a lot of 420 activity going on up here. I know you probably can't make plans at the last minute, but please come up here and find a way to visit us at some point. And if you did, God, we'd have you in the studio. That'd be great if you came to Toronto anyway.
Maybe next year, maybe next 420, I'll spend it in Canada. That would be awesome.
What are you going to do this year for 420?
I really, it's going to be a quiet one. I haven't made that many plans. A friend of mine is coming down for a visit, and I'm not sure what we're going to do yet. I'm sure we're going to consume a lot of cannabis, but I don't think that we're making any big wild plans. I don't think we're going to go to any big festivals or anything like that. I think it's just going to be, a quiet one at home with friends and loved ones.
Okay, well, don't accidentally cross the border and have your stash eliminated and sent back out, okay? Because then you'll have a tough time joining us later. But we do have, I would have done this later on, but I'm going to keep you on the line. This just came in right now. Here's a little, a little science for you. Okay, a little science for you, and check this out. We have a problem. It turns out that in the state of Illinois, have you ever been to Illinois, Jane? I'm laughing.
I have.
I'm laughing, but this is terrible. Illinois, on Gizmodo. This is a new piece that was just put in front of my face. It was released a couple of days ago. People are bleeding from their eyes and their ears after smoking synthetic pot in Illinois. It's a sentence that just about sums up 2018 so far, dealing with an outbreak of synthetic weed that makes its users bleed from eyes and ears. The Illinois Department of Health reported that since March 7, at least 22 people have developed severe bleeding soon after taking synthetic pot products. The bleedings not only occurred from their eyes and ears, but their noses and their gums as well. Patients have also vomited up and urinated blood, experienced large unexplainable bruises, and had extremely heavy menstrual bleeding. There's been no single product tied to all the cases, though the majority of patients recalled buying their products from dealers, stores, and friends around their Chicago area. As of yet, no reported deaths. Despite the perception that synthetic cannabinoids are safe and legal alternative to marijuana, many are illegal and cause severe illness, said Nirav D. Shah. He's the director of the IDPH. Public Health of Illinois, I guess. The recent cases of severe bleeding are evidence. I'm laughing not because I'm glad people are getting hurt, but this is another example of pharmaceutical mayhem. I don't recall in my history of knowing about cannabis or using it, folks, bleeding out. It's a synthetic cannabinoid. Keep away from that shit. This is what they're trying to promote. Manufacturers of these products either spray chemicals, like Organogram here in Canada, believed to mimic the high of conventional marijuana onto smokable herbs, or sell the mixtures in a liquid form that can be vaped. The products are packaged as Spice, K2, or 100 other names, containing an unregulated and ever-changing cocktail of chemicals that can lead to widely different experiences for users. Leaving aside the Ebola-like trips from hell seen with these recent cases, users have reported psychotic effects, including extreme anxiety, paranoia, and hallucinations. According to the National Institute on Drug Abuse, others have died. Well, they did die, apparently, in the same article. They say they did and didn't. And with the federal and state governments scrambling to ban the ingredients commonly found in these products, manufacturers have continuously formulated new, untested combinations of cannabinoids. A 2015 report by the Centers of Disease Control noted, at this point, there's no concrete answer as to how to exactly spot the products that are causing the bleeding. An earlier report by the IDPH speculated something in them that seems to behave like a super warfarin. That's, warfarin is a blood thinner. It's a rat poison. Referencing the commonly used blood thinner. It blocks the effects of vitamin K in the body, and that these blood thinners take a long time to flush out of the system, which means the bleeding episodes will last for a while. Fun stuff. Synthetic marijuana, ladies and gentlemen. Tell your doctor no thanks. Thanks for listening to that. That's glad to get that in there.
Well, it's actually, unfortunately, something that I'm really familiar with. And I think any, American listening to your show is completely familiar with that story that you just relayed. This is an alternative legal spice is what it's called. And it's synthetic marijuana, and it is sold in gas stations and head shops. All mostly in states where it is cannabis is not legal, so it's being marketed as legal weed. The problem with this, though, is that there are a lot of chemicals in it, as you just read. The reason why the police here can't keep it off the shelves is because what happens is they make it illegal, but then the manufacturers just change one molecule of the chemical makeup, and they just alter it slightly to make the substance not illegal anymore. And they can't keep up with, the laws can't keep up with it, and it's being driven by money. And so that's how these products are being sold and why they're evolving so quickly.
Wow. Okay, we're going to have to get to the point where we're wrapping up soon, but let me just ask you, do you know anything about growing clubs? Do you have any of that down there? Growing clubs? Sort of.
What do you mean growing clubs?
Well, people form an informal, non-business, non-professional, non-registered sort of a collective, and like let's say you'll grow a bunch and I'll grow a bunch, and then we can trade. It's sort of a, like a co-op deal, or.
Yes, co-ops. That's language that yes, I understand.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. I was
the border.
Yeah, I was no, it's fine. I was actually part of a patient co-op myself when I first started growing. So yes, I've not been part of a co-op recently, and I don't know how many are going on here, where I live, but absolutely we have patient co-ops like that.
Oh, that's good. We need to do more of that here. You can just completely take the power away from these purveyors. I am advocating a full-on governmental boycott, absolutely, from any synthetic marijuana, but also the stuff that's being sold as the official business of the government of Canada and the various provinces. I'm saying grow your own, get your own, stick to the black market, the gray market. Let's grind these guys down to a pulp. That's what I say. That's my recommendation. You don't have to take it, but I think it's a good advice. Just before we get going, Jane, and you're so lovely to speak with. It's been great having you on the show. Thanks for answering my questions, and I've got a million more, but I just don't have the time at this point. So I want to make sure that you get out everything you need to get out, to tell everybody where you can be found. Tell us about your Twitter, and as well, tell us if there are any MS organizations, or et cetera, or any patient organizations that you know of that could benefit from your channel and these kinds of informational blasts.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. I really, really appreciate it. Your questions were awesome and thoughtful, and I appreciate having the opportunity to share with your listeners.
Oh, thanks very much.
I am at Jane Dro pretty much everywhere. I'm on YouTube, and I am on the Instagram and the Twitter and the Facebook, Jane Dro or Jane Dro 420. You can find me everywhere, and my main shtick is our videos. Oh, and I also produce bongs. So
You
I
produce
make
what?
bongs
Sorry?
from time to time.
You make
I
bongs?
make bongs from time to time. Yeah. I make some glass, grow by grow glass, and I'm excited because I'm going to be producing some more this week, this year. this year. So I'm excited for the pieces that are coming out this year, and I think that's about it. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm so glad that
Find
you
me on
came
the
on.
social medias.
All over the place.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so definitely look for Jane's tweets, and definitely have a look at her on YouTube Saturday Night Live. If you're not watching the NBC version, check out what Jane is doing on Saturday. Feel free to contact her. Feel free to engage with her YouTube page, and it's been a lot of fun having you on. I really, once again, I'm always taken by this. I've said this a lot of times now. But I absolutely mean it every time I say it. I am so thrilled that people are able and find a way to take what's, a bad deal. Got a shitty deal of cards when things started. There's no getting around that. When you find yourself saddled with a disease, and so many of, I'm going to say us, folks have been able to take that and turn it around, and you've created a positive from it. Who knows what you would be doing right now if you were living, a life where you weren't given that medical sense. You'd be a completely different story right now. But that's a champion.
Right.
You're a warrior, and I appreciate it. I salute your efforts, and I think you're a great woman. It's nice having you on.
Thank you very much. This is awesome. A lot of fun, really. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we'll let you go. That's Jane, everybody. She's fantastic, and she will be coming back sometime, and we hope to get her up to Canada. Yeah, that's great. I just want to do a couple of quick plugs before we get out of here. Again, the 420 in Windsor, Ontario is going to be fun. The folks from Detroit always come down to Canada for that. I'm going to let that hang a minute because people say, down to Canada? What do you mean? That's crazy. Yeah, that's the way it goes. So 420 is going to be great this year. I might be going to that. If I'm going to one at all, I'm going to the one in Windsor because our guest next week, once again in the studio, we're excited to have him back, is Paul Hartman, master grower, among many other talents. And quick shout out to my own self and some folks I've gotten involved with recently over at Guantanamera. That's spelled the numeral 1 and then TONAMARA, Guantanamera. That's us. This is a Thursday night jam, and that's fun stuff. We have a lot of great musicians coming in for that. It's been 3 weeks down, and the next one is coming up in just a couple of days. And if you can get downtown Toronto, it's at 202 Spadina Avenue, just north of Queen, just south of Dundas. And we help ourselves to the plant. Come on in to check it out. I'm sure you will enjoy the company, and the music is great. The players who are the house band, they rotate around, but the anchor is the drummer Jay. He's fantastic, and you should really come down. If you bring an instrument or you play one, and there's some instruments there you can get in for free. Danny Menlo, the producer of this show, is helping us get the word out, and was there last week and saw firsthand why he knows it's a good idea for you to come down. I get up on stage and say a few things, introduce the folks. People get up and have a nice, good old time. It's been really fun for me, and we're going to continue this for some time into the future. And speaking of the future, as I say, next week our guest is Paul Hartman, and we have lined up a series of fascinating guests up and down the rest of the month. I think we're well deep into May now, and it's kind of frustrating having a show that's only once a week. We can only do 50 guests a year. I'm sure there are hundreds of people that need to get on the show and that we would like to feature. So with that, let's just get out of here. It's been a long one, but I hope you picked up some information you could use, and I thank you for listening to Green Crush Conspiracy Queries with Alan Park. It's been a fun time. It's been really cool to speak with her, and it just puts a smile on my face. She's doing a half marathon. That's incredible. I can't even do a marathon. Too damn lazy to get that thing going on. But do come on next week. We will be back with another fantastic show, and I sure hope that you enjoy it. Peace out.